Well, we're a smaller and more intimate bunch. We're the die-hard people who've been hanging on to here, where can we get the money? No, not quite. Did you all have a good breakout session?
Yes.
Yes, we had lovely food. What did you get? Good. Right, gives me pleasure. Now we've got two more speakers, and then our graphic recorder is going to do a little summary of the day that we've had so far, and then we'll have a finishing remarks from the chair. So, without further ado, I have been told I don't need to introduce Fionnuala Walsh, really, except just to say she is the chair of the Funders Forum for Northern Ireland, and she's going to tell us everything else. So give a big warm welcome to Fionnuala Walsh.
Nuala, can you hear me? That's great. I love these speakers. That's fantastic. So I'm aware I've got the very hard 3 o'clock slot. Everybody's a little bit lulled, so it's not going to be a PowerPoint. It's just going to be a little bit about what the Funders Forum does and where we are in this space. And if you'll forgive me, I'll talk a little bit more about positive climate action, but given the conversations we had today and the audience we have, I know you will be able to make the leap in that. So just to say, I am chair of the Funders Forum for Northern Ireland. My day job is I'm national head for BBC Children in Need in Northern Ireland. And it's been a privilege, really, to hear all that's happening and all today, because there's so many ideas we're just taking. I think all of us are going to be taken away. So we're a membership body. We're made up of representatives of organisations who fund and make grants locally. And we invest in every aspect of Northern Ireland. So in grassroots community organisations, in communities of interest, thematic work across all age ranges, physical and natural environments, in social and economic disadvantage, and significantly reaching the most marginalised in our society. So our financial support and assistance, it's largely directed through the voluntary community and social enterprise sector. I know many of you make applications on a regular basis, and through individuals, and that maximises the impact of our funding for the benefit of communities. We come together to not give out funding. Thank you, Nuala. She was going to tout that come to me for funding. But we really come together to consider partnerships and collaboration, and to connect on issues and funding opportunities, and to promote giving across Northern Ireland. And we share information and funding policies and procedures, and facilitate discussions on issues that affect charitable and philanthropic grant giving in a Northern Ireland context. So there's about 34 forum members, ranging from large UK-wide organisations like Children in Need, like the Lottery, like Heritage Fund, to local-based funds from the Belfast Charitable Trust to the Community Foundation for Northern Ireland. So we're a real mix of independent and semi-independent funders, and a bit like the community development ethos, we recognise that we are stronger together, and we want to collaborate with others to ensure that the millions of pounds we invest every year really has an impact in communities and the organisations receiving our funding. So before I just move on, I just want to, there's some lessons from the pandemic we're really trying to hang on to as we move into this recovery stage. So, you know, we're flexible and responsive. That's what we learned we could be, and we learned to adapt and change at pace during the pandemic. We actually didn't know we could do that because we had all of these barriers that we thought were there. You know, we talked to the sector, we supported adaptations to activities really at pace. We're flexible funding, deadlines were changed, timeframes, not a problem. Really supporting organisations, we hope, to really do what they needed to do in their communities to reach the most marginalised. And you will know of some of the examples there, but one of the big shifts as well is that we moved to core costs for organisations. A lot of us moved to that type of real funding that the sector was saying for quite a while, this is what we need, and we did manage to do that. So these are things that happened in a crisis situation, folks, and we want to maintain and not revert to, because there is no normal anymore, so we want to maintain some of that. So what we have learned. We've learned that there is an overwhelming supply of goodwill, expertise, imagination and creativity within our communities and in our society. It is incredible. And we see examples of that today. As funders, we can really quickly harness our resources, and we've always had this, we can't take that amount of risk, but we did. We managed risk, and it was fine. We did it. We have a flexibility and independence that others may not be able to exert, and we work best in trusted partnerships, and we work best when we are working with network organisations, formal and informal infrastructures that really know the sector, really know their communities, really know the people and what is best at a grassroots level. So we're really trying to hold on hard to that. So I've been asked really today, I'm going to talk a little bit about our conference event in November, where we came together to discuss some of the key issues and emerging themes that can and will shape how we fund as independent and semi-independent funders in our local communities in Northern Ireland. So a key part of the day's discussion focused in ways in which we can act on climate change in a Northern Ireland context, and how we as funders lead, inspire and support communities to take positive action on this really critical issue. So panellists from the day included representatives from the Northern Ireland Environment Link, giving us a policy context. We had a fantastic example of a grassroots organisation, Footprints Women's Resource Centre, which in its day-to-day activities also has almost organically developed a community garden and thriving social supermarket, which is just a great example of ways in which to work with community and local businesses. And, I always ask in these events, who's in the empty chair? And it was inconceivable to have such a conversation without having young people at the table. So we had representatives from Our Bright Futures, which is a UK-wide project with 31 projects across the UK, with young people acting as catalysts for change in their communities and about the environment. And my goodness, they blew us away. So some of the key issues from the conference include, for us, there was a lack of legislation that we could work to. So it's really very welcome to hear all of the conversation earlier today and what's happening in Northern Ireland. The young people were saying they are most impacted by climate change and anxious for the future. Funders need to learn from young people and not be complacent in this issue. So that brought us right back. There's been no significant focus on climate change across funders, which you may be aware of. Funders are at an early stage in how to make and assess changes within their organisations and through their philanthropic giving. We need to take a considered approach and not deepen existing inequalities such as lack of access to transport and digital poverty. And we also have to take a considered approach when we look at what we have talked about today. And, we've not really dwelt on it too much today, but, coming loud and clear, and we know this, climate change is not the great equaliser. There is a direct correlation between poverty and climate change, and those that are already disadvantaged and marginalised will be most impacted. So the discussion in the day was very much about the greening of our organisational strategies, very much the intersections between climate action, and you can see today, and well-being, between climate action and social justice, all of these things, and poverty, and ways in which funders can drive sector behaviour towards climate change and the environment. So we're not working alone in this. Across UK and in Ireland, we know that there is, this is going to be a focus for funders, either directly or indirectly. So my go-to is the Environmental Funders Network, which is a network organisation which is looking at funders to say, you need to put more money in this space, but providing resources as to how to do that. And as well, a little like what was shown today, they very much focus on tangible ways in which to do this, because it can be completely overwhelming. But some of the projects that you profiled today through the videos says this is what you can do at community and a grassroots level. Now, they've also got very large amounts of money in saying this is what you can do, but all of it is about transformative effect on the environment. Now, a lot of funders as well are looking to sign up to funders' commitments on climate change. Importantly, these are public. So we are stating publicly that we are making a public commitment. And it can be from educating and learning, making opportunities for trustees, staff and stakeholders to learn more about all of these things that we need to know. Committing to resources, so accelerating that they will commit resources to this area, integrating within their existing programs, priorities and processes, and quite interesting, given the context that we live in at the moment, stewarding our investments as well for a post-carbon society. So very much looking at the investment strategies, where are our investments going, where are we making our money? So the reporting and the progress you will see that trickling through the funding programs that will be coming through, I would imagine, in the coming years. So some of our future considerations for the Funders Forum as we came out of the conference is that simply we learn from young people, reframing climate change as a crisis and commit to being a part of the solution. Identify relevant strategies, resources and best practice examples and sharing those among each other so that we can operate within our own organisations. Within our own organisations, also commit to educating and informing staff and trustees, and at an operational level, inform and educate applicants and drive behaviours in terms of rethinking their projects, their objectives and goals. Profile best practice examples and consider signing up to public initiatives such as funders' climate commitments and climate change. And seek to advocate and influence. So again, knocking on doors where we need to, working together, collaborating with departments, and some funders are doing that already. So what does this look like in real life? So things are definitely moving at pace. I know with my Children in Need hat on, we're in the middle of a new grant strategy, and I can't imagine that climate action principles will be embedded in some way in all of our programs, themes and decision making, because when we ask young people, what are the two key challenges and for you moving forward, there are always the two things. It's mental health and well-being and it's climate crisis. So as a charity, we can't ignore that. But I think there's hope in that as well. So that's fantastic. Again, other organisations like the Lottery are developing a new strategy in this year. So we will see more of these things embedded within all of our programmes. So there's quite a few direct and indirect funding programmes, and I've a pretty comprehensive list. I'm happy to send out what funders are doing what, where. Some are directly funding, like Lottery, why we are here today, the Climate Action Fund. For others, it's more indirect, and increasingly we'll see more coming through in this. And I suppose we will also see within application forms, so I think there's more to come through. We will see within application forms that organisations are beginning to encourage and support projects and communities to consider their environmental impact. And it was funny, I was looking at the Lottery, some of their narrative at the moment. So, for example, in their programme, if you're seeking funding for outdoor spaces like car parks, are you reconsidering what you were using? Would you consider something else? If you were asking us for funding for a new roof, would you consider then looking at solar panels or whatever it is? Similarly, we're beginning to ask applicants things about what they're going to be doing with with you're buying something else or you're doing something else. What are you doing with the stuff that is not there, and signposting? And I suppose importantly as well, starting to look within our assessment and decision making. And from today as well, it'll be taken away rightly things like procurement, asking for 3 quotes. Are we driving behaviour that actually doesn't really fit in this new world that we're in? So I think that's a real very fast where we are as funders. We certainly know that we contribute to a healthy civil society in Northern Ireland, and we want to be part of this conversation. And I think that when you are looking for funding, you will see more of these things coming through. I think for those small grassroots organisations to focus on the intersectionality between what you do and well-being. I mean, clearly when I see all of the conversations that happen through sharing tools or, nappy exchange. I mean, it's all of those social conversations, the isolation, the well-being, all of these things. As funders, we are noting those as well as our governments. So thank you very much for today. It's a whistle-stop tour. It's an afternoon, but thank you.
Thank you very much, Fionnuala. That was fascinating, and thank you for pacing through it. Well, we've come to our final speaker for today, who's going to be coming to us online. It's Jacqueline Gibson, and Jacqueline's fascinating background. She's going to be talking about a circular vision for Northern Ireland. Her background is she's an award-winning director for International Synergies, NI. There she is. Since 2008, she's been leading in the use of recycled aggregate and construction materials in roads here and large NHS healthcare projects. One of our projects in the UK was helping Blenheim Palace. I know it well, I was there once. I'm sure they still talk about it. Yeah. I do have a funny story, but we need to keep going. Okay. She helped Blenheim become the first landed estate in the UK to declare a climate emergency and to phase out single-use plastics and to become carbon neutral by 2027. And internationally, what a range. She's worked across a diverse range of projects from Manchester United football team, Upper Reds, to Slovenia, and all the way to the world's largest copper mine in Zambia. So I cannot wait to hear everything that you're going to talk to us about today. Please welcome Jacqueline Gibson.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Nuala. What a lovely introduction. And just to let everybody know and make you feel very jealous that behind me, this is what the sun looks like. I'm zooming in from the Southern Hemisphere in Zambia, where I came out to visit my dad, who set up a sustainable NGO in sustainable agriculture, climate smart agriculture. So I guess you could say sustainability has really been in my blood from the shores of Carlingford Lough as a kid, and then summers spent in Africa. There's certainly a drive to embed sustainability. And as you can hear from Nuala there, whether it's Manchester United, a palace, or a road project, that the same sustainability principles do apply. I presume that everybody can hear me okay. I can't see anybody, but I presume that the sound quality is all right. If it does go, apologies. And you've left the last speaker with the most to say. I could talk to the cows come home on sustainability, but hopefully today I'm going to share maybe some other wildlife pictures to really talk about what do we mean by industrial symbiosis. You'll hear a lot of words like synergy, symbiosis, and what we do at International Synergy. So I think we have two people struck with COVID at the moment. Liam tuning in from Harvey's Point on his holiday. He's such a dedicated member of staff. And then we have Craig there in the audience with the pop-up stand. So I'm sure he'll give us a bit of a wave there, wherever you are, Craig, manning the show. So Emer wanted me to throw a bit of art or colour in. So I thought, well, I'll just go a bit kind of arty with some local Zambian crafted jewellery and a bit of colour. And I'll kind of share something else. So who are we, International Synergies? It may surprise you to learn that within Northern Ireland, it's actually the world's largest symbiosis programme in the world. And we're running over 20 years, and we're probably just very low key. I joined the project in December, but I was involved with the project when I worked with Graham Construction from 2008 onwards for 7.5 years. So I just thought it was a brilliant project. So hopefully now that I'm director, we want to shout and scream about how amazing it is. We've been involved we're doing work, for example, in Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. We're doing a plastics pollution program in Bangladesh. We've been working with street kids in South Africa on trash back schemes to help them with money. And we're working with the Angolan government to help the ministers understand what is sustainable legislation. Mexico, the States. So in every continent. And more recently, we've been working with a number of local authorities within Northern Ireland. So ABC, Armagh, Banbridge and Craigavon on a green growth strategy. So obviously we've got a new energy strategy, we've got a waste strategy. Sustainability is certainly much more to the fore. So we're a delivery, I suppose, a delivery body for helping businesses in those areas to really get on board that maybe don't have the resources in-house, that don't maybe get sustainability. So part of that is educating them, a bit of carbon literacy, and actually we're now doing carbon literacy for the business and the community as well. So that's a really interesting project. And it's a series of 3 workshops just to understand what is climate change, what is net zero, carbon zero, net gain, all of this kind of jargon that organizations may hear, get their head around where their big impacts are. And then hopefully by the end of workshop 3, they're up to speed, inspired to make some change, and they've set targets to do so. But what I'm going to talk to you today more so about is our matching service. And this is run fully funded through Invest Northern Ireland under their resource efficiency program. So we basically offer free support and advice for any organisation within Northern Ireland, any size. And we go out, pretty much our practitioners look into bins or look into what are your waste products, what are your wants, what are your raw materials, what are the stuff that we all use, and can they match that with another organisation's want, or another organisation's waste may become your want. So it's almost a bit like a Tinder matchmaking in the business context. But we're yet to develop a bit of an app, but we're working on that. We do have very geeky software people, and I'll kind of do a screenshot of what we're using across Europe. But our vision is really to lead in this, what we call industrial ecology or industrial symbiosis. So when you look at the natural world, just by nature, what one organism's waste is becomes another organism's valuable resource. So I was trying to look for a really nice photo, but as Emer did say to me, to try and throw something arty in. So I've just got a bit of wildlife photography. I took this recently on the Zambezi River, and this is my view every morning for 4 days. You can see Zimbabwe in the background, the other side of the Zambezi. But if you kind of tune in a bit behind the far left on that elephant, you can kind of see, I didn't manage to get a photograph of a bird taking little ticks off the back of a hippo with my little phone, but I managed to obviously just depict the symbiosis that exists within nature. Obviously the elephant dung, it's making the ground very fertile. You can see it's very lush and green there as well. It suffers with a lot of drought. Here in Zambia, we've had 4 years without water. But actually the birds then utilize that waste, don't they? They go through and look for insects and seeds and things. So that's really what we think will, when it comes then to industry, how do we do that then with industry? So as I mentioned, keeping those resources in circulation for as long as we can. They've already been extracted out of the ground. And if I would like, maybe, I can't see anyone's hands, but maybe Nuala, you can maybe point out someone. But if anyone would please dare to put up their hand, if they can point out anything in the room or anything they're wearing that either hasn't been mined out of the ground or hasn't been grown out of the ground and brought to you by a truck. So just have a look at everything around you, everything you see, everything maybe you're wearing. So everything's either been mined out of the ground, grown out of the ground and brought to us by trucks. And all of that stuff's already in circulation. And at the same token, we're still extracting more and more from the earth. So what we're here to do, I don't know, maybe someone has put up a hand. The only time I've ever done this, that someone put up their hand, was a fly. A fly came into a room at the University of Oxford one day. So really we're trying to inspire and be that network to really keep these resources in circularity. And we believe that this is key to addressing sustainable development. So I'm not going to hit you with all these definitions. Really the rate of consumption. If everyone in the world were to consume the way we do in Northern Ireland, you would need 3 planets. So the challenge is obviously, how do we do this in one planet and also allow the developing world and these growing nations, developing nations with growing populations to develop, to meet a good high standard of living. So no wonder there's response, and future generation are concerned about this, and government's response, but businesses are still a bit, where does this leave us with sustainability, with carbon, with resources? And we think actually the UK was the first country in the world to adopt a Climate Change Act in 2008, and we're still not great. And we have probably very good recycling systems in place. We're a developed country, But yet when you look at, for example, just one material like plastics, that every single piece of plastic that's ever been created is still here in existence. And yet we only recycle about 31% of that. So the infrastructure is there. We've got vehicles, we've got factories. So again, it's behavioural, it's support from councils. And every council area will be different, I'm sure, across Northern Ireland. Does the milk top go into this bin, or does the Tetra Pak go into that particular bin? So we really do need consistency, and we need that consistency with government. And in terms of the Sustainable Development Goals, yes, the big culprit there is responsible consumption and production that we're really supporting, but actually we're supporting things like life below water, climate action, life on land as well. So this is kind of all the other SDGs that we believe we're supporting. And I'm just now going to touch on carbon reduction. So it may surprise you, this is kind of what we're delivering, all like jobs and landfill diversion, and it's great for the planet, it's great for the companies because they're saving money. But in terms of carbon and climate, it may surprise you to learn that this kind of the orange that we're looking at in here is something called Scope 3 emissions. And a lot of organizations that claim to be zero carbon, I think even mayonnaise came out today, the big ketchup and their zero carbon drive. But really what they're doing is they're saying for Scope 1 and 2, we're going to go net zero. And your Scope 1 and 2 is your electricity and your heat demand and your vehicles. But everything else, all the stuff coming into your factory, into your organization, your staff coming in, stuff that's shipped in from China, from Africa that goes to China and then into the UK. And then once it leaves your factory to the user, the end of use, that's all Scope 3. And it's really hard to start mapping that out for organizations. But you can see here just depicted that is the majority of Scope 3. That's the biggest amount of carbon is in that area. And that's the waste, that's the products we're using and just discarding, disposing. A lot of organizations that I've spoken to, when I ask them to put up their hand, whether they think their biggest impact is Scope 1, 2, or 3, they always say Scope 1, which is their purchased electricity or purchased heat. And it's like, sorry to drop a bombshell on you. And studies, according to the University of Oxford, show that this production of materials is almost accountable to 25% of greenhouse gas emissions. So we talk about CO2 equivalent, which is carbon dioxide equivalent. So we might hear carbon zero, but what really organizations are saying is they're greenhouse gas zero or carbon equivalent. And you can see there the list of things: iron, cement, plastics, wood, stuff that actually can be recycled and refurbished. It's not very difficult to keep all of that stuff in circulation. And since 1995, obviously this has tripled. And I don't know whether anyone can remember as far back as when Friends first aired on the television. And Wet, Wet, Wet was number one. With, what was it, Love Is All Around? Anyone remember that? So since then to date, we've put more carbon into the atmosphere than we've ever done throughout history. So that's quite hard hitting, isn't it, when you think about that? It doesn't seem that long ago, only 1995. So a lot of our work is really helping organizations. Yes, they may dispose of it and it may go to energy from landfills. So a lot of waste in Northern Ireland might be incinerated. There's a few big incinerators in Northern Ireland and a few companies that have incinerators. Not necessarily the most sustainable option, we believe. It's better to recycle, to reuse, and in fact, avoid the waste. That's where we're going to have the biggest environmental impact. So streamlining, being more resource efficient, and then with any waste, mapping that. So this is pretty much how we do it. We sit around tables, we get everybody together, and we get them, I think you can see maybe two different colors of paper. We've got a yellow for halves. This is the stuff I have as a waste. And the green, this is the stuff I need. These are my materials. These are my raw materials that I need and that are my costs and overheads. And literally just matching those up. And then we go around the room and people chop and change. And by the end of that day, by the end of an hour and a half, 2-hour workshop, people have resources matched, cost savings. They've got I mean, we have so many innovative products that come out of face masks being used now in PVC windows manufactured in Northern Ireland, up to 82%. We're working with another company. A young guy saw a need, there's a gap in the market with them. When windows get delivered to construction sites, they're quite hardy, almost like plywood, wood, but they have a gap inside where the window frame would be. And they were just being discarded into wooden skips. We put him in touch with Ulster Carpet, and excess wool is now being blown into the middle of that. It's getting sprayed. He's got office space. We put him in touch with a lot of other industries, and now he's shipping that, exporting that out of Northern Ireland as a fully 100% sustainable insulation panel to countries like Sweden. So 3 or 4 different wastes within Northern Ireland. So we see a lot of innovation happening. And this is obviously some of the workshops happening locally in hotels and things. Obviously with COVID, that presents a bit of a challenge. So we have been hosting our workshops online. And our next one is actually next Monday, the 28th at 2:00. So I do encourage you maybe to Google us or look at our LinkedIn page to see that. They're free to register. And yeah, that's our resource matching workshops. We normally host about 4 to 5 a year. So we're seeing that this increases innovation, supply chain partnering. It's a really good networking opportunity for businesses, reducing costs, reducing waste, and reducing carbon. So it's all really good, all sectoral, all resources, to really keep the resources within circulation. And I'm conscious of time, so I'm just going to flick through and maybe show, that's really small probably for you, but I just wanted to depict some of the countries we're operating in, from Uzbekistan, an energy park where we're almost like place-making industries, positioning them right beside other industries that may have a waste that may be utilized by another company that for their wants. And we're doing that in Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, Turkey, Italy, Sweden, China, and as I mentioned, Africa. But you can see on the right-hand column, that's all the industrial symbiosis. So that's all the industrial symbiosis. So there's organizations, countries are, for example, the World Bank, United Nations Development Programme are putting a lot of funding into this. And you can see some of the demo projects we've done and some of the savings that have been achieved right across the world, from South Africa to the States, right across Europe. Northern Ireland. So to date, well, actually, this is a bit out of date. So that's something I'm going to be doing, is updating this. But you can see the economic contribution, almost like 42 million that we've achieved in Northern Ireland, private investment, jobs, and of course, in the environmental impact, diverting 400,000 tonnes away from landfill and CO2 reductions. And even just in the hospitality sector, so when we map everything out in our database, we can even break it down into sectors. So you can see even within the hospitality sector, what is our contribution, for example. So I was just putting together the February report. Now, we offered support. Our guys went out on the ground. I'm in Zambia, obviously, but I've got a great team on the ground there that are either ringing up or going out to visit organizations. And within only 7 organizations, this was the cost savings achieved, the additional sales achieved, and the diversion of materials, virgin materials that were saved, 1,807, huge. But also, we went out and we also assisted 13 companies just to identify potential synergies. So they've yet to maybe make those links, and we put all of the resources or their haves and wants on a database, we make an intro, link them up, and this is the cost savings that would be generated if they follow up. And then this is the kind of bespoke support. We take them through DERA paperwork, or if it's still a waste, you need a waste carrier's license. So organizations don't know a lot of that jargon. So we're here to help take away that headache. This is our database. It's European wide, but we can go into Northern Ireland. We can look at companies, we can look at resources, where they are, and make a match. And this is pretty much showing what a lot of those materials are. And you can see plastics is a huge one. So there's a really huge scope to keep that in circulation, wood, packaging. And And again, when we think of that, the almost a quarter of CO2 emissions, greenhouse gas emissions in the world, if we even just address plastics and within Northern Ireland could be really act as a flagship. So there's three big things that have been fed back to me with our guys on the ground. Northern Ireland is struggling with expandable polystyrene, rubber tires, and wooden pallets. So it's kind of like a call to action maybe for any innovators out there, any funders that want to maybe kickstart some new manufacturing facilities or councils there. Because yes, it's being recycled, but it's having to be shipped out of Northern Ireland. And these are wasted opportunities really that are leaving Northern Ireland. So that's just a wee bit of feedback to the ether out there. So a lot of organizations think it's a great idea. We hosted the G7 in Germany a few years ago. They asked us to host that. Number of case studies on our website, plastics, even I thought I'll feature the Beach Hill Hotel, just around nearby there in Derry. Frylight is a great case study where they're collecting waste oil and putting it into the vehicles as diesel, hydrogenated vegetable fats. So think about the fuel and even fuel costs at the moment. So we've a lot of success at the moment. And I'm just going to try and play a little short video, if I may. And this is of Liam. So Liam is due to retire next month, but we think he might not retire. So he loves us so much.
Jacqueline, can you hear me? This is Nuala.
Yes?
Yeah, no, we're not getting any audio this end on the video. We can see it, but we can't
Oh,
hear anything.
sorry.
It's very
okay, so I'm going to
but
give
we
you.
just can't hear anything.
Okay, so Money More, Jungle and I, we put them together with a synergy with Happy Sports. This is a guy from the council speaking at this huge cost savings council. Obviously, reducing that was going to landfill. And they're using that as part of their tendering process. He's saying that he can ring up Liam at any time and he helps him with ongoing resources. And Jungle and I are really just saying that, what someone else's waste is my treasure. And it was AstroTurf that otherwise would have been dumped or gone to landfill. Plastic is non-biodegradable, so it would have been there forever. So, but yeah, so get in touch with us. And apologies that you couldn't hear any of that. That was a terrible running commentary, so thank you, Nuala, for interrupting there. But European Commission have cited us and quoted us. And in fact, if you Google industrial symbiosis, the definition on Wikipedia, it will show our organization that it was first coined and that we're kind of leading in the world kind of arena in this. So we believe that the future for us, certainly within Northern Ireland, there's a lot of money to be made, cost reductions alone. But we really feel that the public sector supported facilitated industrial symbiosis is the best model. It's one of the better models to address future market failures because they can, really, I suppose, they can block through all that bureaucracy and paperwork and through public procurement tender documents and things like that. And they can really put a lot of pressure on organisations for public sector projects. And it obviously is dependent on policy environment as well. So we want to engage with DAERA, which we do already, and they're actually coming to our workshop on Monday. So we believe that Northern Ireland can be a flagship. Want to utilise, I suppose, wider collaborative. I think was it the girl before me, Fionnuala? Fionnuala spoke from Children in Need before me about this, need for collaboration and partnering. So whether it's smart cities, the low carbon economy for Northern Ireland, and making these organised industrial zones, as I mentioned, what we're doing in Uzbekistan, for example, increased policy. So we do lobby back to DAERA. So any feedback we get, any barriers, any challenges, we feed that back to Invest Northern Ireland. We feed it back to government to hopefully lobby for better policy. And we're helping organisations on wider sustainability support under 7 themes. So it's great. Do get in touch and put Northern Ireland on the global map, that we can live sustainably within this one world. And just a final reminder that our workshop is next week. And go and speak to Craig. And I just thought I'll finish with a few more pictures in terms of the symbiosis. So I was blessed to be able to see the wildebeest migration that happens here. I've never been able to see it before. I very rarely come here in November. And it's 40,000 wildebeest. So working in collaboration, working in a group, and they enrich this soil. I mean, you can't really notice it there, but it's over to the west of Zambia. A lot of very sandy, almost like the Kalahari sands that come in. So when the wildebeest are there, they're putting manure, fertilizer back into the ground, and you just see this surge, this rush of beautiful foliage that comes out. And obviously that is able then to keep the rains that are so vital for life on the land. And then, of course, they're able to relax and enjoy, and they look very happy, wildebeest and birds. And I thought, I'm not going to bore you with any lion kills. You've probably seen enough on the television. But I did come across this, and this was after the lion kill. We have the vultures, and in the background, you can see a marabou stork cleaning up all of that waste. So really, we don't need to look too far when it comes to nature and learning from nature and looking forward into the future and thinking we still have a bit of work to do and a lot to learn. So thank you for listening, and apologies that you couldn't hear the case study, but certainly do Google us.
Thank you very much, Jacqueline. I hope you can hear me. That was absolutely fantastic. And you've got the event next week. I'm sure lots of people will be wanting to attend. Thank you for finishing our conference pretty much on a very positive note and putting Northern Ireland on the map. And enjoy the rest of the sunshine.
Well, I'm probably going to enjoy a sundowner soon, Nuala, because it's already past 6 o'clock with me, so the sun goes down pretty quickly here.
Yeah, it's 6 o'clock somewhere, that's what we say. Okay, thank you very much, Jacqueline. We'll see you soon. Bye.
Thank you.
So, good, we're nearly at the end of the day. You'll have noticed Stephanie was doing what's called graphic recording, making visual representation of today's event. So we're wondering if Stephanie can come forward now to give us her summation. All right, it's not on my list. All right, we've got a third video, a surprise video. I just keep saying, as long as I get my bus at 5 o'clock, I'm all right.
You can't do anything alone in this life. In our experience, we found that if you work together in collaborative, sustainable projects, there's an economy of scale there.
One of the first things God asked people to do in the Bible, Genesis, look after creation. If we can make any contribution to reusing and recycling, which helps the environment and helps the world, then we feel that's also part of our calling.
It doesn't have to be all about what we do on our own or what we wait for others to do. There's a lot that we can do when we come together.
The vision is an environment where there's zero waste, To that end, we're approaching charities, we're approaching social economy projects, we're approaching communities who work towards restoring, reusing and repairing.
We're really trying to promote something called the circular economy, trying to make sure that we have a more sustainable approach to consumption of goods and materials.
It's a social and a technical strategy out of the linear economy into living in a circular economy with Earth. We're saying let's take that linear economy and bend it so that what's coming out at the end is going back in at the beginning. And when you reduce the waste to zero, then you have a perfect circular economy.
The main aim within our council is to reduce our waste from landfill, to divert that material to more meaningful purposes, rethink the way that we actually treat our waste and to rethink what we can do with our resources.
I hate seeing things thrown out. You can always upcycle them instead of going out and buying new and costing yourself a fortune. I'm here to help people that can't afford it, because I know what it was like myself.
If you live in Ballymacarrat here, you're likely to live 15 years less than you live in Ballyhackamore. We're helping vulnerable people through a social economy business based on reusing.
There's been a lot of education in terms of the importance of reusing and recycling materials, and we're going to see more and more of that.
Projects like this are growing every month. New ones are popping up, and people are seeing the value in this, and it's a real growing movement. And I think it represents the future in a lot of ways.
When we come together to do stuff, practical things like this project feels really good, and it encourages you and it keeps you going. And so all our team are volunteers, but they come because they really enjoy it and they really enjoy being in that space and making their skills available to the service of the community.
I just love doing it. I've been here in the mission here for 20 years. And just love the work. And it's nice to help other people out.
To me, it's very important because it's get people out cycling again, where they couldn't beforehand. They're getting out, they're getting healthy, they're getting their mind healthy, they're getting their body healthy, where they couldn't beforehand.
At the last count, we were up to 22, 23 separate partnerships and community projects. What's come out most clearly is how involved and how enthusiastic each of the partners are, and they're prepared to share their skills and their knowledge to make a difference. You can't do anything alone in this life.
Good. Thank you very much. Well, we finally are at the point where we're going to welcome Stephanie up with her big birds. Do you know David Dunseith on Talkback? He told me a lovely story years ago. He and his wife had moved into their new house down the country somewhere, and they were getting some work done in the garden. And the man came, David's wife, Roisin, I think she was called, called the man in and said, "Here's some lunch for you," but they hadn't got out to the shop, so what she did was she gave him some cheese and tomato on Ryvita. You know Ryvita? And apparently came back and knocked the kitchen door about 20 minutes later, and he handed her back the Ryvita and says, "Here, missus, here's your wee birds back." So Stephanie has big birds. Stephanie comes to us all the way from just downstairs, and she, I'm sure, will talk us through what she has been recording this afternoon. This looks fab. Thank you, Stephanie. Keep going.
Okay. Yes, so I've been here today in the capacity of graphic recorder, and that means that I've been listening in, capturing your thoughts and translating them into imagery, because that works well for most people, just to try and simplify things a bit and just capture the essence. So we all go away with some idea, some of the key points that we've talked about. So what I'm doing, and we'll keep it really brief, I know that we're slightly over time, I'm not going to add anything new. This is meant to be a recap, so just the key points of what I have heard. So these are the key speakers that we've seen in this room throughout the day. I've not managed to capture all of them, but some of them here. And some of the interesting things that I noticed is, especially when we got to the second session, where we heard speakers from Wales and Scotland and from the South, there was a lot of talk there about having to turn the waste hierarchy upside down. Here's the waste hierarchy for lay people like me. So there was some synergy around that topic about needing to start actually from what we want to see rather than needing to ban what we don't want to see. That was something I heard. There was a lot of talk both from people in government and then people in local initiatives, and the obvious need for partnership there. So actually we were talking a lot about the same things needing to happen, but from the different perspectives. Some of the local initiatives that were mentioned, the Nappy Library, the Tool Library, the Repair Cafe in Belfast, Fair Share, lots of really exciting initiatives, ones that I hadn't realised were a 5-minute walk down from where I live in Belfast. And so the Minister this morning talked also about the opportunities now that we're coming out of the pandemic. How are we going to use this momentum that we're getting maybe to do things differently? How can we kind of, shoehorn this really important thing into doing things differently anyway? So that would be brilliant. Then, if on your way out, take a moment to have a look around, and if there's anything that I didn't capture, there's a couple of more of these. Write it on there. I had a participant write her key takeaway, which is empowering parents to raise children to help sustain the planet. Awesome. So anything that isn't in here, add it. And then the second board here was from the breakout session that I attended, and that was around consumption, waste, and climate change. And the way we'd set it up, we had 4 tables discussing 4 different questions. And we actually had the participants captured their key points from each discussion round themselves. So this is not even through my filter. The questions we talked about was, discuss consumption is essential for economic growth. Is that right or not? And a second question, do you think that the zero waste world is possible? So just looking at the key points, discussion points that came out of that, these are quite high-level questions, and the thinking around it stayed quite high-level and abstract. There was conversation around economic growth is bad, no, it's good, it's okay when it's sustainable, those kinds of impressions. And then similarly over here, when asked this question, the discussion that resulted from that was very much around our relationship to the planet, our relationship to each other and the world, and this need for a seismic change or seismic shift in our relationship to the planet. This tool wants to come in here. What does it say? Companies must consider business model innovation, that too. And these other 2 questions down here were a bit more concrete, and so also led to slightly different discussions. So there was one, how would you encourage people to go on a stuffed diet? I hadn't heard that term, but it's pretty good, yeah. And the other question, what needs to change for Northern Ireland to fully embrace a circular economy? So these were different tables, different discussions. There was a bit of cross-pollination because people were circulating around, but there was some overlap between these 2 discussion tables. So one thing that I picked up was both talked about the importance of education and starting early with young people, that becoming the stuffed diet becoming the rule, not an exception, but also an insight of people know, they write their essays, young people know, they write essays about it, but a question around whether at that age there are incentives for change. So that was a point that I picked out from that discussion. And let's see, yes. So conversations both about regulations needing to facilitate as well as local initiatives, but most importantly what I saw in both was the importance for making this easy and accessible. That came up here, it came up here again, make it easy to do the right thing, make it accessible, and that is both in terms of access to the services and also in terms of the language around these quite cerebral topics at times. These little bits at the on the edges, that was the online audience chipping in. So increasing consumer knowledge and awareness to fuel the circular economy, profit and power versus sustainability and zero waste, and more focus on nothing new campaigns. And I've heard that come up throughout the day, that this isn't anything new. It's a recent invention, and we knew how to do this, so let's do it again. Grant, that's all from me, and if I missed anything, grab a cutout and add it. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. That was wonderful and beautifully presented. Okay, we're pretty much at the end of our session. I'm going to say thank you and wish you all the best. Pardon? Can I say something after you? No. Please. Yeah, no, that's great. Thank you. Sorry, I didn't mean to be cheeky. I'm going to hand back to our main host for this afternoon, actually, Emer. I'll just say thank you. And I leave you with this thought. I always leave, at the end of the day, I say to people, you know, keep a sense of humour. In all of this, it's so important. As I always say, what would we be if we couldn't laugh at ourselves? Jeffrey Donaldson. Thank you very much. Emer, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. I'm not intending to keep you very long. I just literally want to do a couple of thank yous, which I think is really important today to do, because today wouldn't have happened without key partners and key individuals who have given of their time and energy. So the first people that we really want to thank are DERA, the funders for this conference today. And particularly give note to Rachel, Wendy and Paul, who've been so supportive in terms of NIRN, not just in terms of providing funding, but also of their thoughts and ideas and guidance. Thank you. Community Resources Network Ireland. I have been employed by them for the last 20 months, and by the end of this month we'll be flying free into doing NIRN. Solely, but in terms of the support that Mary and Christine have given, Mary, Stephanie here is a graphic recorder here today. That was one of Mary's ideas in terms of how we can use this centre, as an art centre. We should be bringing the art in here and displaying that to yourselves as a way of communicating. So getting great ideas from Sarah and I and Christine in terms of helping with our social media and our PR. All of the speakers who have given of their time, their thoughts, their experience, their great ideas, which some of them I will very much be stealing going forward. And two people I sort of want to pull out from that is Jane McLennan, who did the cookery course, which was sponsored by Fair Share, which is one of the members of the network. So thank you, Jane and Mia from Fair Share, for organising that today. And also, Jacqueline, giving of her time in Zambia. You could tell it was a hardship for her to, come away from being out in the wilderness and speaking to us today, but really appreciate, all of the speakers giving of their time. Yeah. Two people I want to particularly pay note to is Nuala, who's done such a fantastic job of pulling it all together. Yeah. And she is correct, she's not cheap. But it is that fact that some of the subjects and the topics that we're talking about today can be quite daunting. It can be sometimes quite scary, talking about the whole aspect of that we are using 3 planets, the connection with climate action, and we do sometimes need that bit of comic relief to go, well, actually, yes, we do have these challenges, but there are ways of tackling it and having that moment of laughter to bring us back down to earth again. So thank you very much, Nuala, for doing that today. Hidden in the corner, but not hidden in the corner, is Rosalind. So Rosalind has been ensuring that the online audience has been kept engaged and their voice heard within this room. The other thing to sort of highlight in relation to Rosalind's role as well is that she is a columnist for the Belfast Telegraph, and she's been positively promoting and engaging with our members and doing stories of them recently. And yesterday she did an article which highlighted the event happening today. So Rosalind, thank you very much for all your support on that. The Playhouse as a space to use for the conference, I could not recommend it highly enough, and that's from a number of different perspectives. One, Fiona, who's helped us with all of the booking, the organisation of the rooms. They now have Paula, who's come on board as a Climate Action Officer, and she's been helping facilitate the conversations with Stephanie. And finally, in terms of Chloe and the technology that has been used today. I mean, I have been at other events where they have been beaming in other people, and this is second to none in terms of my experience. So thank you very much to Chloe for all of that. I want to give thanks to R&D for the videos. They were recommended by a number of members in this locality, and I think, in terms of what they captured, of the voices of our members, of the voices of the participants who use their services, of the voices of the volunteers who help the organisations, I think they did a marvellous job in capturing that, so I'm really grateful to them. And you may have seen a strange guy lurking around with a large camera, who also would have featured in some of the videos, but that was Neil Campbell, who's on one day will be managing the Vault in Belfast, and another day managing Belfast 2 Library, but also another job in terms of Campbell photography. So really appreciate him for all of that and for capturing the photographs today, which we'll be using and sharing with yourselves and on social media going forward. This event would not have happened without our members. And in terms of their engagement, their input and their ideas for today's event, that has been second to none, so I really wanted to pass on my thanks to them, and also particularly to the members who've come along today and undertaken the demonstrations in the foyer, so that you all have a better understanding, the ones who've attended in person, of actually what is the activity that our member organisations are getting involved in and want to develop further. So thank you all for doing that. And last but never ever least, my personal thanks for Caroline. Caroline came on board. Yeah. Caroline came on board and now she's left. No, Caroline came on board in mid-November. We actually got confirmation of funding for this in October, and then Caroline came on board in mid-November, and what she's managed to do in terms of pulling the speakers together, the members together, the facilities together, in organising an event like this, it's not just, it's actually like in organising two conferences, because having one in person and having one online, it's, double the workload, as well as the fact that we're trying to focus on the fact of making it as environmentally friendly as possible. So, it's bringing in services that maybe the Playhouse doesn't currently offer, like having, cups and saucers as opposed to disposable mugs, having water bottles as opposed to plastic containers. So all of that has had to be managed, and Caroline has done a sterling job on that. So many thanks, Caroline. And finally, I would just like to thank the audience today in the room and online. The theme of our conference was the voices and vision for the circular economy in Northern Ireland. What we're keen for today is that we've heard lots of people speaking about their sectors and what they're doing to transition Northern Ireland to a circular economy. We want to ensure that all of your voices now become voices positively promoting what the opportunities are from an environmental, an economic and a social perspective. So thank you all so much for your time today. Yes, people need to give these back, but also we do have some drinks downstairs. I'll be the one underneath the bar at the end of the night. So thank you all so much.